Well, we are in the fifth part of this series, Mental Mayhem, and what we're discovering together, how do we overcome thoughts that are wreaking havoc in our mind? And in this series, we're following along in the storyline of a guy named Elijah. And up to this point, we have seen mountaintop moments that Elijah has experienced between him and God. One of the first ones was when, the famine hit the land, and God sent ravens every day to feed Elijah. Now, I know ravens, that's not like the most epic of all birds. They're loud, and they're noisy, and they're kind of dirty, and in the Jewish faith structure, they were unclean. But God still showed up to feed Elijah. Then one day, God comes to Elijah and says, hey, go find this widow. And when he finds the widow, he discovers that she has just a little bit of flour and a little bit of oil, and she was actually on her way home to use that flour, use that oil, to make a last meal for herself and her son, and they were going to lay down and die because the famine was so bad. And Elijah says to her, hey, I just want you to know, God has said that the flour and the oil will not be used up until the rain comes. And so God not only feeds Elijah with her oil and flour, God feeds the widow and her son. And then one day, the widow's son gets sick. And her son dies. And Elijah picks up the boy, walks upstairs, lays him on his bed. He literally lays his body over him, and he prays to God. God, heal this boy. And guess what? God does. I mean, can you imagine Elijah picking this boy up who starts to breathe again and walks down the stairs and hands the boy to his mom? You talking about a mountaintop moment. And then what we looked at last week in part 4. Elijah had soaked the entire altar with water. I mean, so much water that it filled the trench around the altar. And God sent down fire from heaven, and it burned up everything, including all the water. And then God, after 3 years, sent the rain. And then God's power came upon Elijah, and Elijah outran the chariot of the evil king Ahab. Mountaintop moment after mountaintop moment after mountaintop moment of Elijah experiencing God's power and God's presence and God's provision. And then Elijah receives a message from the evil Queen Jezebel. A message. A little note. That note simply said, hey, Elijah, so you know, by this time tomorrow, you're going to be dead. And what does Elijah do? He runs for his life. Fear completely consumed him. Now, there's something interesting when we think about this moment with Elijah and when we think about our daily lives. There's two words that we use often that we kind of interchange them at moments, and they're similar in ways, but they're vastly different. That's fear and anxiety. You see, fear is when we see a threat, right? You see a spider. You are driving on I-80, and all of a sudden the car in front of you hits black ice, right? You see it, right? Like it's not a thought of tomorrow, right? You see the threat. Anxiety is fear, but it's tethered to, when you think there's a threat. That's that word tomorrow. But what's interesting is when it comes to fear, we literally see the threat, or anxiety, we think there might be possibly a threat. Our bodies respond in the same exact way. And this is what happens. When we have fear, when we have anxiety, whether we see the threat or we think there's a threat, our brain kicks into overdrive. This is fascinating. You see, there's a little small part in all of our brains. It's called the amygdala. Now, I love this word amygdala because it's a really big word, right? The amygdala. But that word amygdala comes from the Latin word, and that Latin word simply means almond. And they named this little small part of the brain the amygdala because it's the size and shape of a almond. I know, amygdala sounds like such a big medical word, but it just literally means almond. That's why they named it that. And the amygdala is part of the limbic system, and that part of our brain is all about our emotions and our memories. So just hold on to that. Our emotions and our memories. And the amygdala specifically is about our emotions, like fear, like anger, like anxiety. Now, whether we see the threat, fear, or we think there's a threat, anxiety, our brains function the same way. You see, the amygdala starts to say, well, there's a threat. There's a threat. And the amygdala goes into overdrive. Why? Well, when you see the threat, when you see the spider, when you see the car in front of you hitting black ice, when you see a grizzly bear, right? All of a sudden the body goes, hey, this is a danger. You better pay attention. But when we just think there might be a threat, the body responds the same way. So when we see the threat, spider, grizzly bear, car in front of us spinning out of control on I-80, going 70 miles an hour, hitting black ice, right? When we see the threat, that input comes in through our eyes, and it quickly goes to the part of the brain called the thalamus, which is that kind of pinkish purple area of our brain. The thalamus, think about it as the relay center or the relay station. It goes, oh, there's an issue. Where do I send this information? Well, it sends it to two places. The cortex, or the visual cortex, which is in the very back of our mind. That's where we think. And it sends it to the amygdala. Now, which one does it send that signal, that input, first? And the order is so important. Well, it sends that input, directly to the amygdala. Before it even gets to the back of our brain, the cortex. And the cortex, again, is where we think. Now, this is really important, right? Because if you see a truck spinning out of control on black ice in front of you, or when you see a grizzly bear, a mama grizzly bear with cubs, right? You don't want to take time to process and think through all of that. You just want to react. You want to respond. It's the fight or flight. You got to get yourself out of that situation immediately. And so the thalamus sends it to the amygdala first, the emotional epicenter. It detects the threat. Then it triggers a response. And this is happening, I'm talking in milliseconds. Right? The amygdala from the thalamus gets, hey, there's a threat. And all of a sudden the amygdala goes, hey, I'm involved. And right, it is going to go into overdrive. And the amygdala tells the hypothalamus, hey, hypothalamus, I need you. The hypothalamus is like the orchestra conductor. And it gets all the rest of the essential parts of your body going. And it tells the pituitary glands, which is the master glands, hey, I need your attention now. And then it tells the sympathetic nervous system, hey, I need you now. And then it tells the adrenal glands, which is right above our kidneys, hey, I need you now. And the adrenal glands starts to send out, epinephrine and norepinephrine and cortisol. And all of a sudden, right, our entire body goes into, I got to get out of this threatening situation. And all of a sudden, all of our body kind of goes, oh, I need this part of your body. The blood starts to flow. The oxygen in your blood increases. The blood flow to certain parts of your body, like your muscles, increases. Right? So we're now hyper fixated, and our body is positioned to get out of this threat. And then the amygdala starts to learn from the threats. It's called fear conditioning. So the next time we see that spider, the next time we see that bear, or the next time we see that conditions on the highway, our brain goes, hey, I've seen that before. I know how to respond to that. And then the fourth part of the amygdala, and this is fascinating, research is still coming in on it. It's also about positive emotion. Because the amygdala is not about the negative emotions, fear, anger, anxiety. It's about the strength of the emotion. The stronger the emotion, the more the amygdala gets involved. Now, with understanding these four things, think about it. When it comes to fear, we see a threat, or anxiety, we think there's a threat. The amygdala says, hey, you got to either fight or flight. You got to stay and fight, or you got to run. And it's so super helpful when we see a threat. But we're living in a day and age where the vast majority of our threats isn't really what we're seeing, is it? It's what we're thinking. It's the threats of tomorrow. It's what might happen financially. It's what might happen in our marriage. It's what might happen to our kids. It's what might happen to our jobs, our dreams, it's all of the worries about tomorrow. And the body responds the same way, whether we see it or we think it. And Elijah gets a message about tomorrow. And his entire body, his amygdala, goes into overdrive. Now, in this part of the story we're going to look at today, there's three very specific actions that, we see Elijah just live out in real time. And the thing about these three actions is, this. All of us have experienced all three of these before. Probably most all of us are experiencing at least one of these now. Some of us, maybe all three of them now. And all of us in the future will experience all three of these. Thousands of years ago, it was true for Elijah. And guess what? It's true for you and true for me today. And so where we left off in the story last week, again, Elijah received this message from the evil queen Jezebel saying, hey, by tomorrow you're going to die. And this is what we're told Elijah does. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. Now again, was his fear rational or irrational? Well, the answer to that question is yes. I mean, there's the rational side where Jezebel had been killing the prophets of God. She was an expert in killing prophets. She had perfected her prophet killing. There's a rational side to it. But remember, first of all, Elijah had incredible mountaintop moments with God. I mean, he experienced God healing a dead child. He had just seen God rain down fire from heaven and then send in rain. I mean, Elijah had experienced God's power firsthand. And yes, Jezebel might have had perfected killing prophets. Fine. But the irrational side wasn't like she had just showed up with her entire army. She sent a messenger with a message talking about tomorrow. And what does Elijah do? He runs. He escapes. Don't we do that? We want to run from that anxiety. We want to run from that fear connected to tomorrow. And Elijah literally runs for his life. And then we're told, when he came to Beersheba in Judah, this means he ran as far south as he possibly could. He ran as far away from Jezebel as he could. I mean, he just didn't go over the next town, the next village. No. He got as far away as he could possibly from Jezebel. And we're told he left. He left his servant there. Now, his servant would have been one of his closest friends. His servant would have been someone that would have traveled with him everywhere. His servant would have experienced all of these mountaintop moments with God. He was with Elijah. He helped Elijah. He served Elijah. He was a trusted voice. They would have shared life together, stories together. I mean, this was a close friend. And all of a sudden, Elijah looks at him and says, no, you can go. You're dismissed. While he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, which leads to the second action. What does Elijah do? He isolates, completely isolates himself. And when it comes to anxiety, guess what we human beings are experts at? We isolate, don't we? We isolate ourselves. Well, then Elijah, as he's escaping and isolating, we're told that he came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed. Now, so far in this story, Elijah has had some amazing prayers. He prayed for the widow's son to be healed. If you missed that part of this series, or maybe you just need to go back, you should read that prayer. Faith-filled, raw, honest prayer that Elijah screams out on behalf of this mother and this boy who had died. Bold prayers, faith-filled prayers, big prayers. Part 4, we just looked at the prayer where he said to God, hey, God, I want your people to turn back to you. Bring down fire. And he didn't have to pray that prayer for hours or even minutes. It was a prayer, and then fire came. We have seen Elijah, the prophet of God, a spiritual man, a spiritual leader, pray such an amazing prayer. And now he prays again a third time. What does he pray for now? That I might die. Different prayer, isn't it? That says a lot to his emotional and his mental and his spiritual state, doesn't it? But he wasn't done. He continues and he goes, hey, God, I've had enough. I've had enough, God. I've hit my limit. No more. Have you ever been at a point where you've had enough? Maybe you're there right now. Maybe you woke up this morning and you thought to yourself, I don't know. I don't know if I can get to church, if I want to go to church. I don't know if I want to be around people. Isolation. I don't know. Hey, God, you and me, God, I just want you to know I've had enough. I've hit my limit. God, there's just no more space within me. I can't handle one more disappointment. I cannot handle one more fractured relationship. I can't handle one more. I've had enough. And this is where Elijah was. Hey, God, I've had enough. In fact, he's in such a dark place that he goes, hey, God, just take my life. I wonder in the back of his mind, he was thinking, hey, God, I just saw you rain down fire. Just do that again. Take my life. And then he says, I'm no better than my ancestors. Now, that's such an interesting line. Because in chapter 18, Elijah says something else. It's one of those passing statements that we just kind of shot right over. But it was a massive insight into what was going on within his thinking. Chapter 18, Elijah makes a statement about he's the only prophet of God left. Now, here's what's interesting. It wasn't true. I mean, he felt that way. He felt like he was the only one, but there was other prophets of God still around. Now, Jezebel had killed a lot of them, granted, but he wasn't the only one left. And now, you see him say, hey, I'm no better than my ancestors. I'm a horrible person. I'm no good. God, why do you want me? And what we see building within Elijah, and this is one of my favorite words, is the word ruminates. The word ruminate literally gets connected to what a cow does. A cow will eat food, it will chew it up, it will literally swallow it, and it'll throw it back up chew it again, swallow it, throw it back up, chew it, swallow it, throw it back up. It's ruminating. And that's what, if we're not intentional, and that's what, if we're not careful, if we don't call ourselves out, guess what we do with our thoughts? We ruminate. We start having these thoughts go around and around and around our minds. And Elijah had been ruminating. Not sure exactly how long, but long enough where his thoughts generated his emotions that drove his actions, his behaviors. And you see, I think about Elijah, this prophet of God, Elijah. I mean, in the Old Testament, the two kind of most important people in the Old Testament was Moses and Elijah. In fact, you go into the New Testament, there's a story with Jesus. It's called the Transfiguration. It's an incredible moment. And guess who shows up on this mountain to stand beside Jesus? Moses and Elijah. Elijah, who God handpicked. Elijah, who was faithful and said, God, wherever you send me, I'll go. Whatever you want me to say, I'll do. Elijah, who had experienced mountaintop after mountaintop after mountaintop moment of God's power and God's provision and God's protection. It's Elijah. And the fear attached to tomorrow causes them to escape, isolate, and ruminate. So, what about you? I mean, think about those three actions. Again, we've all done them before. Maybe you're doing them now, and we will do them in the future. Are you escaping right now? And we escape in all different ways. I mean, I just wrote down a quick list. Some of you just keep working. That's what I do. That's one of my escapisms. Some of you it's alcohol. Some of you it's eating. Some of you it's shopping, video games, doom scrolling, watching Netflix or Paramount Plus or whatever, wherever you stream. How are you escaping right now? Here's what I want to encourage you to do. Just call it out inside of yourself. Write it down. Recognize the fact that there's something, whether it's this list or it's something else. You know right now, what are you doing to run from, to try to escape from? And this is the question that I want to encourage you to take a picture of the screen. I want you to write this down. This is the question I want you to ask yourself. Who or what are you running from? What anxiety tethered to tomorrow that has your amygdala in overdrive? What are you running from? Who are you running from? Leads to the second action. Isolate. Now, Elijah physically isolated himself from one of his closest trusted friends, his servant. And maybe that's what you're doing right now. You are isolating yourself from family. You're isolating yourself from a spouse. You're isolating yourself from a trusted friend. You're isolating, like you are physically separating yourself. And maybe that's what you're doing. But there's other ways that we human beings isolate ourselves. I call them the isolation traps. Again, not an exhaustive list, but maybe this is what you're doing. Because maybe you're not physically isolating yourself from people, but you are emotionally just moving people away. It's when we say something like, no, or I don't want to bother you. I just don't want to bother you. Someone asks you how you're doing. Someone asks you what's going on. And you're like, I know. You're just so busy. It's another way to say I don't want to bother you. It's those moments when we look at someone and they're trying to ask us some questions because they can sense something going on. And we just say to them, you know what? I know work is crazy for you. It's crazy for me. At some point we need to sit down and talk. But not today. And what we're saying is I don't want to bother you. And we're isolating them. We're pushing them away with a simple statement. Another way, another trap, is no one cares about me. This is a thought that maybe is running around in your brain. You literally have convinced yourself that no one cares about you, that no one loves you, that no one is interested in you, that no one would come beside you to help you in this season. And here's the thing. You'll have a list of reasons right now, they're going through your mind, of why you are correct. Why you are correct, that no one cares, no one loves you, no one. And you'll have names attached to stories. But remember, just because you feel it doesn't make it true. Another isolation trap. I feel ashamed. Now, shame and guilt are two different things. Guilt's attached to the action. Right? You do an action and all of a sudden, I shouldn't have done that action. But shame is attached to you as a person. I'm no good. I'm disappointed with myself because I'm. And for some of you, because shame has entered into you, I think about Elijah being this great spiritual leader, and all of a sudden, he has completely isolated himself. There had to be shame. I'm no better than my ancestors. And then I think, and I'm not saying women don't deal with this, but I think this one is really prevalent in us men. I should be able to solve this myself. Another way to say it, I should be able to fix this myself. I'm a man. I should be able to solve this. I should be able to fix this. I should overcome this. I should. And so you've convinced yourself that you have it. But over and over and over again, we see the stories in the Bible where God tells us that we do need each other. Carry each other's burden when the load gets too heavy to carry yourself. So let me ask you this question. And you should, again, snap a picture, write this question down. What are you doing to isolate yourself? Are you physically, you're just shoving everyone away? Or do you have that go-to phrase that you say to people or you think within yourself and you're just emotionally shoving people away? As you do that, you're isolating yourself. What are you doing? What are you doing to isolate? And the third action is to ruminate. Now, over and over again in this series, I've been saying this phrase. I've said it already in part 5 today. I've said this phrase. But this phrase gets attached to what clinical psychologists call the CBT triangle, cognitive behavior therapy triangle. And the triangle is this, and this is what you've heard me say over and over again, that our thoughts generate our emotions, which influence, guide our behaviors, our actions, what we do. And you think about that, especially when it comes to ruminating, taking those thoughts, chewing them up, digesting them, or swallowing them and puking them back up over and over and over and over and over again. And when you think about that, the CBT triangle, let me just amplify it for you for a moment. There's 2 percentages I want you to stare at. 95%, 80%. Do you realize that 95% of our thoughts are repetitive? Ruminating over and over again. And do you realize that 80% of our thoughts are negative? Why do I keep saying in this series, take every thought captive? This is what the Apostle Paul tells us. Take every thought captive and make it obedient to who? To Christ. Every thought captive. Every thought captive. Could you imagine what would happen if you will actually live that out every day and you try to decrease your 80% negative thoughts and just clicked it down to 79, to 75, to 65, down to 50%. Could you imagine if you took those words so seriously that every day you're like, today I'm going to take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. And all of a sudden started swinging the negative thoughts to the positive side. And 95% you repeat the positive thoughts. So let me ask you this question that you need to write down, snap a picture of. What one thought is repeatedly wreaking havoc? You have one right now. And probably it's tethered to tomorrow. Anxiety. What thought is wreaking havoc? Sending your amygdala into overdrive. What one thought are you ruminating about over and over and over again? My challenge for you, write it down. Share it with a trusted friend. Pray over it and say, Jesus, today, I surrender this thought to you. Every thought, Jesus, I'm going to make obedient to you. You see, I think about Elijah, the prophet of God. He escapes, he isolates, he ruminates. And how does God respond to Elijah? What does God do? Then he, Elijah, lay down underneath the bush and fell asleep. All at once, an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over the hot coals and a jar of water, and he ate and drank, and then he lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up, Elijah, get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank, and strengthened by the food. That who gave him the food? God, through his messenger, through his angel. He traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. And there he went into a cave and he spent the night. If what I love about this moment is Elijah could not outrun God. And you cannot outrun God. And I cannot outrun God. Even in our darkest moments, even when we're escaping, isolating, ruminating, I just want you to know, guess who showed up for Elijah? It's God. And he provided for him and cared for him and touched him and strengthened him and said, "I got you, Elijah. I haven't left you yet. And I'm not going to leave you now in this darkest moment. I want you to hold on to truth. No matter where you find yourself, I want you to know you can't outrun God. And guess what? God chooses to meet you in your darkest moments to give you exactly what you need. You can't outrun God." Let's pray. Lord, I'm thankful for authentic stories like Elijah. Elijah, who did great things for you and experienced the darkness of the valley. And Lord, I'm so thankful that yet again you show up. Yet again you reached out and touched. Yet again you provided. Yet again, God, even as Elijah was trying to run from everyone, including you, that you continued to pursue him. And God, your promises are the same for all of us. In your name I pray. Amen.